Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, prepare yourselves, because I'm about to rock your world with the immense power of conversation. Now, it's something that we all know. It's something we do every day. We all talk to each other all the time. And a good friend of mine, Merriam-Webster, in fact, defines conversation as oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas. Now, it's something that's so prevalent in our everyday lives. Really, can it really be dumbed down to a couple of words in a dictionary? Now, clearly, I don't think that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be up here yelling at you for the next 10 minutes. So let's get into it. What is conversation? Well, to me, conversation is among one of the most beautiful things in the entire world. And I know that's a pretty bold statement. There's a lot of beautiful things out there, but just hear me out here. What conversation is, it can be anything you want it to be. It can be like a portal to another dimension, a portal where, like a dimension where you're loved, where you're respected, where you have friends. But most importantly, conversation is an opportunity. It gives people an opportunity to tell their stories, and it gives you an opportunity to tell your story. And in case it wasn't clear by all the other people who came before me, everyone has a story to tell, and that's what's really important. Now, when it comes to conversation, for me at least, it's always been a bit tricky because I am so bad at starting conversations. It's bad. Let's just leave it at that. My ability to maintain a conversation is significantly greater than my ability to actually start one. So many times I'd go out of my way to get people to start conversations with me. One of my favorite instances is where I wore a bear rug into school, claimed myself as the Bear King, hoping that people would have a conversation with me. They did. It was a good time. But that being said, do not get me started on talking to girls, because that's bad. It's pathetic. We're talking abysmal here. Let's just leave it at that, all right? But no, let's get into it. If you were to have a conversation with me, what would you find out? Well, you'd realize a couple of things very quickly. One, I adore video games. It's by far my favorite hobby. And a couple of my favorites include the Kirby series, hence my emotional support Kirby joining me on the stage tonight. He's doing his best. He's the real hero here. But it doesn't stop there. Another huge favorite of mine is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, in fact. And because it's just a game that I can play with my friends, have a good time, take a load off, and just, beat each other up, as any friends should. That's a joke, by the way. Don't beat up your friends, please. And out of all the characters in that game, I love to play a lot of them, don't get me wrong. But one character that always stuck out in my mind in particular is Shulk, because nothing is more satisfying than just throwing your friend off the edge, looking him dead in the eyes and screaming, "I'm really feeling it!" as the salt settles in over their loss. It's amazing, trust me. But it doesn't just stop there. Something else you'd find out about me is just how much my friends mean to me. In fact, there are a lot of my friends in the audience tonight. I just want to thank them. Love you guys. I really appreciate it. Because without them, I wouldn't be up here talking to you right now. They're the people who made me the man I am today, the person you see on this stage. Because without these people, I would not realize just how important conversation is. For you see, one conversation that really comes to mind when I think of mind-blowing, eye-opening conversations is one I had with a friend a little while ago. Let me set the stage for you. So one night I'm talking to a friend, and they asked me, "Hey, do you want to hang out tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to hang out tomorrow. It's going to be fun." So cut to tomorrow. We hang out, we play games for a couple hours. It's a fun time. Then suddenly, they pause the game, and they look to me and they say, "I've got something to tell you." Now, obviously, immediately the tone had just shifted completely. I had no idea what to expect. My mind instantly jumped to conclusions. I was like, are they moving away? Did I do something wrong? Are they going to kill me? What's happening right now? I have no clue. Now, obviously, I didn't say any of that. I patiently sat there and waited for them to tell me what was on their mind. And they did. What they told me was that this person, this dear friend of mine, was, in fact, transgender. The gender on their birth certificate did not match the one that they personally identified as. And this blew my mind. I had no clue that someone I cared about, who was right in front of me, was suffering this much for so long, and I was completely oblivious to it. Because that's what conversation can do. It can open your mind. Because keep in mind, prior to this, when it came to the transgender movement, I didn't really care. I myself am not transgender. I didn't know anyone who was transgender, so it didn't matter to me. But what this conversation taught me right then and there is just how many people are out there suffering. And I'm not talking about just the people involved in the transgender movement. There are hundreds of thousands, millions, I'd go as far to say, of people out there suffering, and we truly don't understand it. We don't know what they're going through. But that's what conversation can do. It can help bridge the gap. It can help you understand what they're going through so you can help them get through it. That's what conversation can be. It's just that amazing. Now, I know I'm only throwing a lot of this, pardon me. I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys right now, and like, it must be pretty bold of me to come up here and talk to you guys about this, an unqualified teenager such as myself. But do not worry, do not fear. I brought reinforcements. We have Sherry Turkle here. She's a lot more qualified than I am. And in her book, Reclaiming Conversation, she writes about what I just told you. We are losing our ability to have a conversation with other people. We're losing our ability to empathize with others. We'd rather look at a phone for a little while rather than talk to the person who's right in front of us. And to me, that's disgusting. We have so many people who are trying to tell their stories, and we'd much rather focus on what picture to post on our Instagram. Now, in addition to Sherry, I also brought my main man, Johan Hari, here. And in his book, Lost Connections, he writes about his struggle with depression. His spiral downward was partially caused by his lack of human connection, his lack of human emotion. And to him, that certainly wasn't helpful. But once he started talking to people, once he started making people understand how he felt and what he was going through, that helped him through it. It helped him find his sense of self and really push through to the end. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. You're like, well, if conversation's so important, how do I have one? Well, hear me out here. Don't worry, I got you covered. I got some tips just for you. So, number one, put the phones away. It's a very, very simple task. Just put them away. And I'm not talking like put it on the table and put it in sleep mode or anything. No, put them in your pocket, put them in your bag. Get them out of here. We don't want them, all right? No phones allowed. Because what a phone does is it immediately detracts from any conversation you could possibly have. Because if you're having a conversation with someone, say across the table from you, and you take out your phone and put it on the table, that person immediately knows that if you receive a text, then you're not a priority anymore. They're not a priority to you anymore. You're just going to check that phone and stop paying attention to them, even if for a second, which sometimes that's all it takes to just completely ruin a perfectly good conversation. So just keep the phones away. It's a very simple task, and it's all I ask of you. Now, another thing you should probably do, is ask questions. And in fact, I'm going to ask all of you to come up with a question right now, because it could come in handy sometime in the near future. And I'm not talking like simple questions like, how are you? Or what's up? Because that leads to very simple responses of, I'm good, or not much. And is that really a conversation? Technically, yes, but is it really? That's up for you to decide. So anyway, I digress. Let's get down to it. Questions. I'm talking like serious, maybe not all of the time really serious questions, but sometimes they're necessary to ask. Sometimes you have to see someone who's suffering and ask them like, hey, what's wrong? Are you doing okay? But those are only for the most drastic of circumstances. In casual situations, what I'm asking you to do is ask more in-depth questions like, hey, what's your favorite movie? And then do not stop there. That's where they get you. Don't stop right at the first question. Ask follow-up questions. So for instance, if it's like, what's your favorite movie? I really like WALL-E. I think that movie's adorable. Why do you like WALL-E? And then maybe they'll tell a story about their childhood and how they really enjoyed watching that movie as a kid. Because what follow-up questions do is they show, A, you're engaged. You're caring about what this person has to say. And B, you're curious to learn more about them. And that immediately, right off the bat, shows that you are a fantastic conversationalist. So, but those are your tips for you guys. So just keep those in mind. Like I said, come up with a question, because you never know when you might need one. So I mentioned before that technology is helping us kind of lose our ability to connect with others. And one of the major culprits is on the next slide I'm about to show you. And I know you guys signed up for a TED Talk, but for the next 2 minutes, this is going to be a TED Rant, because I really do not care for what's on the next slide. For those of you unaware, this here is the Snapchat logo. And the fact that I'm the second person tonight warning you of the dangers of this app is probably saying something. This app in particular is not one that I care for very much, putting it simply. Why is that, you might ask? Well, in my experience as a high schooler, obviously I can't speak for everyone's experience, but my general experience, a lot of it comes out to be people wanting to maintain their streaks. Now, streaks are something you get for when you text a person on Snapchat every day, like on a daily basis, and you keep it going, and you lose that streak when you don't text someone for a day. And ideally, what that means is you would have a conversation with someone every day. You check in and see, hey, what's up? Like, is everything going okay? Like, how'd the big game go yesterday? You know, stuff like that. But in reality, what this means is people trying to maintain these streaks by taking like an out-of-focus shot of the floor or like half of their foot, half their face. My favorite is just the wall, something like that, just the wall. And then I see them scrolling through all of their contacts, mashing every single one, and then hitting send just to get these precious streaks going. Now, obviously I don't care for that very much, and what I think people should be doing is just maybe not have the most serious conversation of all time, but just really take the opportunity to check in with someone. You know, it certainly doesn't hurt. So just keep in mind, I want to make something extremely clear here. Social media on its own is not a bad thing. In fact, it can be used, and used in moderation, it can be used to teach yourself that you're not alone in the world. There are other people out there like you who are going through something similar. And that can be extremely helpful, just knowing that you're not alone in the world. For example, a good friend of mine, he moved to Florida after freshman year, and I obviously couldn't really hang out with him on the weekends anymore because that would be quite the drive. So what we did was we resorted to PlayStation. We still hang out, we still talk all the time, we play nearly every day, and we're still really close friends. So just want to make it incredibly clear that on its own, social media is not the biggest culprit. It's our use of it that's the issue. Now, I've been talking about conversation all this time, so what I'm going to ask all of you to do is, remember that little question I had you come up with earlier? You're going to put that to use right now. Because what I want you to do, turn around, turn to someone near you, and just have a conversation with them. For the next, you got 30 seconds, you're going to ask that person that question, and you're going to talk to them and have a genuine conversation. So, in T-minus 3 seconds, you're going to start conversing. 3, 2, 1, go. Ladies and gentlemen, if I might have your attention, very good conversing, by the way, might I say. And I imagine it was extremely frustrating for me to cut you off in that middle of that conversation. So, what I implore you to do is to, after the show is over, of course, continue that conversation. Keep it going. Get to know that person even more. Even if you know them already, try to know them on a deeper level. Because after all, like obviously, it's going to be awkward. Like there's nothing about that. It's going to be awkward, but that's part of the fun. Getting past that awkwardness and getting into the nitty-gritty of it all, getting to know who someone really is. Now, before I leave the stage, allow me to impart some of the wisdom I've gathered in my teenage years, for what that's worth, upon you all. Now, something I've realized is that in public, we all wear a mask. And this mask, so we all wear it for different reasons. Sometimes it's to look cool, sometimes it's to look cute, but regardless, you wear that mask because, we all wear this mask because we're scared. This mask hides our vulnerabilities. It hides our insecurities. It houses our fear, because we're scared. If we take off this mask and show who we really are, and we get rejected, that can be heartbreaking. But sometimes in life, as life goes on, as times get tougher, that mask becomes heavier, as it becomes such a heavy burden to bear that sometimes you think you can't do it on your own anymore. So if there's anything you can take away from this right now, is that sometimes you don't have to wear that mask. Find someone who cares about you and feel free to just take it off. Let's see what's beneath the mask and have a real conversation with someone and communicate with them on an emotional level. Because something I've learned is, most importantly, is that sometimes a single conversation can change someone's heart. That's all she wrote.